Less is more. This is the focus group.
Listen, laugh, and learn.
You have to drill that target audience.
It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Until they are consuming your product, not because they love it, but because they can't escape.
We're all business.
Drill, baby, no more pussyfooting around.
Except when we're not.
And there's no more pussyfooting around this week, Mr. Nash. How are you?
I am
Bennett
good.
Here.
This was selected because the RNC convention's kicking off, and I could see Russia from my porch.
Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Thanks for joining us here on our Wednesday show, The Focus Group. Be sure to also catch our Tuesday podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. You can find out everything about John and me at focusgroupradio.com. And it's all free, and it's either audio or video. So enjoy it, please. You heard our tease opened up. That's going to be in our Shop Talk segment later on about Tim Cook and Apple and his ways of answering email, which remind me of a boss that I used to have, but we'll get into that in Shop Talk. So, John, my hair's all. We talked about this on Unbuttoned. We talked about my.
I think your hair looks fine.
Well, but we talked. Well, you can't see the back. It's kind of a mess. But we talked about it, and I was laughing because we talked about it on our podcast yesterday about whether I get it cut or not, and then who we look alike. And I am going to post once the show gets re-edited. I'm going to post Captain Kangaroo and Steve Bannon along with Woody Harrelson because you got the compliment of the group of
I
what
got
we
the
look
win.
like.
Got the win.
I mean, Captain Kangaroo, really, the hideous bangs. I don't have bangs, but, anyway.
Well, Captain Kangaroo, he was, I had different memories of him as a kid. And then when I saw a photo of him, I was like, is that Captain Kangaroo? Maybe I kept thinking of Mr. Green Jeans, or I can't figure out who I thought the captain was, but I was like, ooh, the captain. I'm not sure it's a flattering comparison, personally.
No, I don't. Not the look neither of us would be going for. Hey, I'd like to look like Captain Kangaroo. Maybe if there's going to be did they ever do a movie about Captain Kangaroo? Like they did with Mr. Rogers?
I don't know. That would be a really great subject. A friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, started working at PBS, and on the day of her first day on the job, I sent her a picture of a Captain Kangaroo lunchbox and thermos set. Remember when we used to get the lunchbox and the thermos? And I said, here's for your first day of work, from a show that I grew up with, and I even learned how to make a circus tent out of a Kleenex box, but it's not PBS, have a great day. And all that came back was like, LOL, LOL, absolutely fabulous, like in 2 lines. So she appreciated the humor.
That's funny. I was on the board of my college, and we had the guy who was the Mr. Green, the bunny, the dancing bear,
yeah, and
Bunny, and I forget whatever else. He went to Marietta in Ohio, and he unfortunately passed away the year that we were giving him the award for Outstanding Alum Award. But I thought, God, talk about a small world. Here I am growing up in nowhere, Connecticut, and I go to a school kind of in a very rural area of Ohio that happened to be a place where this guy that I went to, we also went to college together with. So I just thought that was a weird thing.
I don't know. That's kind of a cool crossover, actually, right?
As weird things go, yeah. Yeah. How was your weekend? Did you do anything exciting? Did you make any? You're back up north?
We're more back and forth these days. In fact, it has more of a normal feeling to me going back and forth to the city. And when we were down, we had stuff to do. I saw my neighbor. We went on walks with her. I took the train several places, had lunch and dinner in the city in different restaurants. Of course, it's great to eat outdoors. That's not going to be the same in February or January, so we'll see how that all goes. But it had a more normal feeling to it. But I know it's anything but normal because everybody was masked and being careful and the whole bit.
Right.
On the way home or on the way back upstate, we stopped at my mom and her husband's house in Connecticut. Got to see my sister for the first time in 8 or 9 months. That blew me away because the last time we saw them was when we had them to our apartment in the city for Christmas. And, Lisa and her husband he's a podiatrist, he's a doctor, and she runs the office. And she described all the processes they go through and how careful they are in the treatment rooms. And interestingly, she said business was back at about 90% of what it was before the event. So I was kind of surprised by that. But, we all need to take care and see our doctors and stuff. Have you gone back to any of your doctors yet, or?
I have a dentist. So right before the big event, I had a dentist appointment and a doctor's appointment, and they were just then starting to take temperatures and checking you outside before you even got in the office. And I have another checkup for the dentist coming up in September. But I'm not sure I'm going to go, just because it's. I don't know why. But I'm not sure I'm going to go. It's just for a teeth cleaning. I think I can wait a month or two.
Too, yeah.
I don't know.
And I waited my tooth. I was supposed to get a teeth cleaning back in January or February, but we were transitioning to a new dentist. And so I held off until we were getting the new one. And then the event came, and now I got to figure out, who I'm going to be seeing.
You have a new dentist?
We will have a new dentist.
How did you go about selecting one?
Oh, it's sadly, it's whatever the healthcare plan's covering because Bob has dental and I'm Mrs. Bob. On the healthcare plan.
Was it word of mouth? Somebody recommended somebody, or did you just go?
Well, we have to pick someone who's in the plan, and I've been looking at reviews, and I'm not happy about it, but I suspected this was going to come, and many of you listening probably have relationships with your doctors that span decades, and my dentist goes back 30 years. And he's been fantastic, and he retired, and it was really quite sudden. And it was due to a family illness, and he was close to closing the New York practice anyway, but left us high and dry. Isn't that always the story there, Tim?
Yeah, I've changed doctors, and I've changed dentists as well. One out of retirement and one out of convenience or location. The doctor went and joined. He was in private practice and went and joined another group of doctors, which my 3 experiences there were miserable each time and kept getting worse. So I just said, I'm not going to fight it anymore. I like the doctor, but I didn't need to be fighting the crowds to get in there to be seen or have somebody try to answer a phone.
Oh, so, you were very unhappy with that arrangement. Yeah. You told me that a long time ago, and then you described the new dates, the new clients.
I mean, in a different culture, I would lay into it, but we're not allowed to talk about anything.
And more, no.
So, hey, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
On cue, coming to us from the UK. So you recall several weeks ago, I had a story about someone who, for most of their life, faked being blind and disabled. And it turns out they weren't, okay? So in this story, let me call it up here. There we go. It's the headline reads, "Abusive boyfriend 38 faked terminal cancer to stop girlfriend from leaving." Now, I just read that. I'm like, how does that even work? So the guy's name is Kevin Bevis, Bevis, 38. He lied about being terminally ill to convince his girlfriend, Karen Gregory, who's 50, to stay with him. He's a father of 3, and it eventually all came undone when the girlfriend, Karen, went to the police to look into his background to see if there was anything unusual going on. But basically, the couple met on Facebook. Now, many of you might have met on Facebook. I'm going to just say that's a red caution sign right there. Maybe.
You think so? Is it any different than if you met on one of the dating apps, you think?
Well, first of all, I think that a face-to-face meeting on the initial meeting, maybe it could be virtual, but a lot of we pick up so much from people in the physical realm that doesn't get translated in the digital. So I don't know. Yeah, but I'll reserve judgment. But I just read that one.
Right.
They got together, and then he started to talk to her about being part of a swinging lifestyle.
Yeah. Are they in Colorado? You know some swingers in Colorado.
Yeah. So he wanted her to, he gave her permission to and encouraged her to bring other men back or to sleep with other men. And she's like, no, I'm not into that. Okay, that's fine. We could still have a relationship. So that was early in the process. Then as time went on, and she said, I think I'm going to leave you, that's when he announced that he had stomach cancer. And she saw him routinely taking about 20 pills a day, which she later learned were vitamin supplements. And she even watched him tell her this in front of his parents. So she said, I was standing next to him as he broke the news to his mom and dad. If he can lie like that to his parents, you have got to believe it. I mean, so she decided, I can't leave him. He doesn't have long to live. I'm going to help him create a memory box and a memory book. And she booked a hot air balloon flight, and she agreed to do the swinging lifestyle stuff. And they brought she had sex with about 2 or 3 other men. The article doesn't say if he watched or how this goes. I didn't dig into it because there wasn't much about it, except that he was lying about this. So eventually she started to get a little, maybe this isn't real. And then he escalated the cancer to mouth cancer on top of stomach, and then said that he had a brain tumor as well. So you're following all this, right? Eventually she did go to the police. He was arrested, and he is getting an 18 months prison sentence and a 5-year restraining order to stay away from her. But, there you go.
They said
right?
What grounds did they arrest him on?
Was
he trying to raise money for the illness or something?
He did, in fact, raise money, and he did a couple of cancer charity runs, which she was appalled by, because she said, you're not going to be able to make the run. It's going to kill you. You got to take care. But they didn't. That's a great question, Tim, because they didn't really talk about what the let's see. The seat came to an end when Gregory, and he rested the next day. But they don't tell you what the charge was. That's a really great. Thanks for bringing that up, because that's a great point. Like, what was the charge, right?
Yeah, and I know in some of the, particularly in the UK, their laws are a little bit different. We are usually you're innocent until proven guilty, but in some other law systems, it's a little bit different. So it could have just been she could have said he was just being a misrepresentative of who he was or something.
Because I don't think it was the swinger request that would have got him.
No, not unless they paid.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Mine's a little different. I saw this. Actually, there's 2 little quick stories I saw, but this one I just thought was cute. So apparently elephants like liquor. I love elephants. But so during the event, there was a lockdown of a winery in China. And these 14 elephants had busted loose and got into this winery and drank all the wine that they had in storage. They consumed they said about 30 liters of wine, and got sloppy drunk and then slept it off in a tea garden nearby. And
a tea garden, right?
Right. So they show the elephants are sleeping after they drank all this booze. There
they are sleeping. I just put that up. They literally look like people laying on their sides, right? Like they're just boom down.
Yeah. So they said without anybody around, the hard partying herd proceeded to chug the 30 liters of corn wine and got sloppy drunk and slept off the hangover in the afternoon in a tea garden. And they said that, as it turns out, animals are actually bona fide party animals, that they do have a taste for the hard stuff, and they have excellent memories. So if they find it, they will mark the territory and then revisit it later to have some. So they remembered, and everybody says elephants have great memories. They remembered where this booze was, so they tracked it down. Nobody was there. They drank everything that had been harvested and produced, and got sloppy drunk and passed out. I just thought it was a cute story, because I was curious as to elephants would just be able to. I mean, we often, I don't think we give animals a lot of credit sometimes about how smart they are. And I
Some
thought
don't.
this one,
I think they're smarter than us.
yeah. So I thought this was a cute story. The other one reminded me, the other quick story reminded me of you. And I just wondered if you'd seen it because it was all over the news. But there was a malfunction at the Lindt factory, the chocolate factory in Switzerland. Did you hear about that?
Lindt, right? No, I have not heard about this. And I love chocolates. So what's the deal?
See, I didn't do the story because I figured you probably heard about it. Well, there was some issue with the ventilation system, and essentially it blew chocolate cocoa all over the town. The town was coated.
Oh, yeah. I did hear about this, but I didn't know it was there was the cocoa powder.
Yeah, there were roasted cocoa nibs from the factory. This was in Olten, Switzerland. And the fragments that they crush into beans or chocolate, whatever, combined with the strong winds on Friday morning, this was a week ago, the powder spread all around the immediate vicinity of the factory, leaving a fine cocoa dusting. The company said that they offered to pay for any cleaning needed, but no one's taken them up on the offer. Production was able to continue once they fixed the ventilation system. But I guess it smelled pretty nice. And
it's the kind of problem Willy Wonka's chocolate factory would have if it were real, right? The Oompa Loompas would come out and do the cleanup, and they'd sing a song and then go back in. That's the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but not the one that was redone. Good ones.
Well, the originals are always better, aren't they?
I think so, and I often think you never have to touch it, but that's me. I wouldn't survive in Hollywood, I guess, right?
I watched the original was on. There was some place I saw it. It had popped up, and it is. I remember as a kid going to the theater and seeing it, and just really, really enjoying it as a kid. And yeah, I did love that movie. James, what was the one about somebody in the magic toll booth? Remember that James and the?
Well, there was James and the Giant Peach, and
right.
There was the Phantom toll booth.
There was something like that. I expected it to be a good movie, and it wasn't. I remember being a little kid, very disappointed at the theater.
It's like, that's not unlike when we went to see Mary Poppins, and I was convinced my little sister, we had this little green umbrella with a pearl handle, and I was convinced that if I had her jump off the deck at the back of our house with the umbrella, that she would float down. So I get her to stand up on the railing, and this was... And it was at least a story, so she's up there and I'm down below, and I'm like, okay, the wind's up, jump. And she jumps, and for a brief moment, I thought, oh, she's floating. And the umbrella went straight up, and she hit the ground and sprained her ankle, and I, of course, was in massive amounts of trouble for a while. What were you thinking? Well, we saw Mary Poppins, she can fly. My mother just... And you know what Mom said back then? Your mom probably did the same thing. Your father gets home at 5:30. That was yeah. So I was whack. That was the belt, the yardstick, or the hand. What do you want?
Now, did you? So you obviously saw. Well, did you think she might fly?
I did. Yeah, I thought.
And your sister, obviously, Laura believed anything.
Laura was a very loyal.
John.
She was a loyal lieutenant. She
was. She
followed to the end of the earth. Yeah. So.
She did everything you asked, even right up through high school and college. She was a good egg.
She still is. Yeah.
Still the infamous story of her calling in the fire at your home to get
I'm
us out of
baking a
school.
cake, and we having a grease fire. It still got us out for McDonald's, right?
That and our listeners have heard that story a million times, but it was so well done and so well executed. It should be a scene in a movie of the 80s somewhere. Somebody needs to use that as a scene in a movie.
They did. It's in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, if I'm not mistaken. One of your favorites, and certainly one of mine, and it highly watchable.
Hey, your business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
There are a couple of birthdays today that popped up, but this one, if you're a fan of our show, you've heard John and I speak of the movie Hidden Figures a number of times. And so this person's name popped up today, August 26th, born today, August 26th in 1918, Katherine Johnson. And she passed away just recently in 2020, in February 24th. She was 101 years old. She's an American mathematician whose calculations of orbital mechanics as a NASA employee were critical to the success of the first and subsequent U.S. crewed space flights. During her 35-year career at NASA and its predecessor, she earned a reputation for mastering complex manual calculations and helped pioneer the use of computers to perform the tasks. the space agency noted that her historical role as one of the first African American women to work as a NASA scientist. And so she also, her work included calculating the trajectories to launch windows and emergency return paths for Project Mercury space flights, including those for astronauts Alan Shepard, the first American in space, John Glenn, the first American in orbit, and rendezvous paths for the Apollo lunar module and command module on flights to the moon. She also was essential in the beginning of the space shuttle program and to the latest missions on Mars. So I just I love that movie. And if you're looking for a very feel-good movie about somebody we probably never heard of, because I certainly didn't growing up in history, it's a great movie. So,
I just put up the pictures that you provided of her getting, I think it's a Presidential Medal of Honor.
Yeah, she got that. So President Obama gave her that in 2015. And then at the NASA, what would it be called?
Well, she's down at the Johnson Space Center, or was Kennedy.
Yes.
A building's named after her, the Katherine G. Johnson Computational Research Facility, and I love its address, 1 Lindbergh Way. For Charles Lindbergh, so everything's like kind of flight related. But I think it's a great birthday. You turned me on to Hidden Figures. We love the film, and it's very Hollywood, but it also reminds you in some incredibly great scenes that these women made a huge difference, and the way they were treated, because they were black, it just blows your mind. They're making these incredible contributions. Oh, and you have to use the colored bathroom. What? You look back now, and you're like, what is that, right?
Yeah, and those were some pretty powerful scenes in the movie where she was constantly the women, and it was called where they were housed. I don't think they showed this in the movie, but the rooms where the African American women were doing their work, and they were known as human computers or computers in skirts. What it was called, colored computers, was the sign on the door.
Yeah.
And they made them run. I mean, there were scenes where she would be running across she'd have to go to the restroom and be running across the parking lots. And they asked her about that, what she felt about the segregation.
So it's true, right? That was a true scene. Okay.
Yeah, they said she was interviewed just recently on C-SPAN about it, and right before she passed. And she said, I was well aware of the fact that there was segregation, but having grown up in segregated America, we just took it for that's what it was. And so she said, and we would all gather, we would eat together, all the girls would eat together, lunch together, travel together. And so but they were all working for the common goal to get, it wasn't as important as the engineers to get somebody into space. She said it was really about getting them home.
Yeah.
And their big job was getting, her getting them home. And there's a great scene in the movie where I believe, is it John Glenn, where he doesn't necessarily trust, because they're using computers to get all these coordinates.
He
and
calls
he asks
from the launch pad and says, get the girl to confirm these numbers, right?
Right, and that's a great scene where they actually get her to do it, and she does confirm that those are the numbers. She grew up in West Virginia, and again, talk about the indignity to a certain extent. They only allowed public education for African Americans in the county she was in to the 8th grade. So her family had to move to another section or another county so that the kids could go for education beyond the 8th grade. And she took every possible science class or math class she could take. She ended up graduating from college with a degree in French and math, and she was summa cum laude. She was an Alpha Kappa Alpha, which is the same as Kamala Harris, who's running for VP. But she'd heard about the only jobs really available were teaching jobs. But she was at a family gathering, and somebody said, you should really look at the space program. And at that time it was called the NACA. You're probably more familiar with this than me.
The National Aeronautics. Yeah.
Right. And they said that they were hiring women and also hiring people of color. So she ended up going there and having a wonderful career, and really is an American icon, and the number of awards she got and she's received as just about any award you can imagine from the country. But some of them came quite late. I was surprised. I mean, you would have thought maybe they would have come sooner, but it wasn't until 2015 and she was a 96 years old that she got the Medal of
Honor.
Freedom.
Yeah. Oh, Medal of Freedom. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. So, but happy birthday, Katherine Johnson, born today, August 26, 1918. She died February 24th, 2020 at 1:01. And she, one of the last things she did encourage girls to get involved in STEM and get a seat at the table and be assertive. And so good for her. Hey, many of you know that Deep Discount's a friend of ours here on the Focus Group. You can own your passion by going over to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, start shopping away. We love and get ourselves lost in there. Right now, they've got a sale going on, and it's the new Hollywood era. It's 1960s and 1970s. And so John and I have both selected a movie for this week's sale. So John, what did you pick?
Okay. I was scrolling through, as I'm doing here on screen, and I always do what Tim does. I went down and I went to this box here, and I went up to page 14 right away, because why not find something you've never seen before? And lo and behold, I come upon this, and the movie's name is Greaser's Palace. However, I actually thought it said Caesars at first. So I thought, oh, it's a fun movie about Las Vegas. But even better, listeners, I need to direct you to this. So here's the catch. It's a movie that was directed by none other than Robert Downey Sr., so Robert Downey Jr.'s father, who I did not really know as a director. I'll read this. Described by writer-director Robert Downey Sr. as a cross between The Greatest Story Ever Told, High Noon, and a Las Vegas floor show. This outrageous satire is set in a sleepy frontier town visited by zoot-suited drifter Jesse, a miracle-working song and dance man whose routine rouses the ire of town boss/saloon owner Seaweed Head Greaser.
Seaweed Head.
Yeah. So I went to Rotten Tomatoes afterwards, and it's a mixed bag. The reviews are mixed. I hate to tell you this, but at 87 minutes, I'm all in. I think the price is like there is 1888. Look at that, Greasers.
What does it say? He's got the
boogie on his fingers and the hubba bubba in his soul. Yeah, one of the year's best films.
One of the year's best films.
Time
Originally
magazine.
came out in 1972, it said.
Yeah. So Rotten Tomatoes says a zoot-suited messiah parachutes into a western town, performs miracles and boogie-woogie songs, and gets crucified. A string of subtle, absurd sketches hanging off a loose New Testament storyline, fitfully funny, always surprising, one of the most bizarre movies you're ever likely to see. That says to me that it's time to check out the film, right?
I'll go out on a limb and say it's probably very politically incorrect, too.
Well, it's from the 70s, right?
We'll have to get it.
Weren't. Yeah. So what'd you pick?
I've wanted to see this one. There was a remake of this movie. I think we talked about remakes a little earlier, but this was the original. It came out in 1970 called The Out-of-Towners with Jack Lemmon and Sandy Dennis. Have you seen this? Yes,
I have. It's I love Jack Lemmon, by the way, and I think this is a good pick.
Have you? So I've not seen it, but it's 97 minutes long. But the plot revolves around Gwen and George Kellerman, whose company has invited him to interview for a possible job promotion in New York City, and they suffer a whole bunch of indignities as they leave their little Ohio town, making their way to New York. Plane gets diverted, they get mugged, they get robbed. He breaks his tooth. They have to sleep out in the hotel room's given away. They've got to sleep outside. Manhole cover explodes. They get attacked at a Cuban embassy. He ends up getting the job or getting a nice job offer. And on the way home, lo and behold, the plane gets hijacked back to Ohio. And they said one of the last lines is Gwen screaming, "Oh, my God." They said what she says during most of the movie. Every time something happens, "Oh, my God. Oh, my God." What's next?
What's next?
So I thought it I love these sort of, I don't know if you would say slapstick, but it just seems like one of, I always love these. It's kind of like a planes, trains, and automobiles, I guess, right?
Oh yeah. And from 1970. So the city also looks very different back then. It's very gritty and dirty as well. So when they can't find anything but a park bench to sleep on, it ain't today's New York. Trust me. Yeah, it's a good comic romp, and I love Jack Lemmon in most everything he's ever done. I think he's a really versatile actor, a comedic actor too. So I think you had a great pick. Out of towners. And hey, look, Tim, it's $6.45, right?
Yeah. You can't beat the price. $6.45.
You're all in, what's it like 97 minutes? Tim's magical movie time, right? A little over an hour and a half. You're in, you're out, right?
That's it. Although it's too long for Vegas shows. We've talked about this. Vegas shows do not need to be an hour. Just first of all, cut the price and make them shorter. They do not need to be 90 minutes.
Except Donnie and Marie.
Yeah. So what was the new release this week?
Released this week is a movie called Gordon Lightfoot, If You Could Read My Mind. And it stars Alec Baldwin. I'm guessing it's him being the voice of the documentarian, but here's the cover. I'll blow it up a bit. Gordon Lightfoot, I keep forgetting that a lot of his songs are part of our cultural history, particularly the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I mean, how many times have you... I almost didn't associate that with him, but it's Sundown, You Better Take Care, Carefree Highway, the wreck of the... And he had a great voice. So it looks like a fun movie, actually, and it looks like a great biopic on an incredible artist.
Yeah, I wanted to see it, too. I was interested. They had a number, and then, of course, there's some discussion from other people that chime in on the documentary, including Anne Murray. Now, somebody told me, I was a huge Anne Murray fan. I think it's because she grew up near my grandparents in Nova Scotia, and we used to have the 8-tracks, John,
right?
remember?
Yeah.
We would listen. But somebody told me that she was a lesbian. Is that true?
I don't know. I actually don't know. About Anne Murray?
Yeah.
So Little Snowbird, Take Me With You When You Go. By the way,
Snowbird
everybody, that's
sings the song with you always.
It's one of Tim's favorite songs.
So I had that on like 3-4 weeks ago.
Of course you did. You might have done what I did as a kid. Instead of going to sleep with Star Trek, the show recordings, you might have gone to sleep with Snowbird, right? Because you know the lyrics. You went right into it. I'm like, that's one of Tim's favorite songs, which is good.
By the way, Star Trek was on this week. I was flipping through my television.
Well, which one? There's so many. The original?
Original. And it was the 3rd episode of season 1. That someone's mind gets taken over. Their minds get taken over.
That happens in a lot of episodes, but...
Well, so exactly. So I just felt it was the same story over and over again. I tried to watch. Little buttons were going red, yellow, green, red, yellow, green, red, yellow,
the plywood sets might have turned you off, and the not so future looking stuff. Anyway,
but I was sitting there listening, thinking that John probably could sit here and recite the whole thing.
I could rhyme and verse,
but it was all brand new to me. I'd never seen it.
There you go. But that's the charm of it. For you, if it's brand new, you might actually get something out of it. I gotta refine my introduction of Star Trek to Tim techniques. But moving on, we want to thank our friends Deep Discount for joining us here on the Focus Group. You go to Deep Discount and get there by going to our site, focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the shark logo. Sharky the Shark, and his name really is Sharky. And we profiled titles from the new era of Hollywood, 60s and 70s. I picked a film I'd never seen before, but you bet I'm buying it. It's called Greaser's Palace, directed by Robert Downey Sr. I guess that's the pedigree there. Tim picked a wonderful film starring Jack Lemmon called The Out-of-Towners. I highly recommend it. It's from 1970. And the release this week is Gordon Lightfoot, If You Could Read My Mind, and he's the songster of the day. So we're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we have a shop talk for you, so stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now, back to The Focus Group with Tim and John.
Glamour today is nothing but a tight skirt, loose hips, and wet lips.
An entertaining look at the world of business.
Make it work. Make it work. Make it work. Work.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Be sure to subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Start by going to focusgroupradio.com. And don't miss our Tuesday podcast, which is released every Tuesday morning. And it's John and I doing 3 quick hits, right, John?
This was a fun one. You sign on to this week, you're going to have some entertainment there.
Yeah. So John had found an article for our shop talk today, and we teased it at the beginning of the show. But the headline is, "This one-word email from Apple's CEO Tim Cook is a masterclass in emotional intelligence." And there was a lot of speculation. So the story, this came out of, I believe it came from Forbes, John?
I think it did, yeah.
Right. And so this was a story that was in Forbes. And the writer talks about how when Steve Jobs had died, many people felt that Apple would be in peril because who could do a better job than Steve Jobs with managing Apple? And while Steve Jobs did a great job, they're saying that Tim Cook equally has done it in his own style and his own way, led Apple to be a world-renowned company, of course. And just this week or last week, worth over $1 trillion, right? Valuation close to $2 trillion.
First, yeah, it's a massive, massive thing. And to think that the people were quaking in their boots when Steve Jobs passed away. And I don't doubt that, because the visionary, but Tim Cook has really driven this company to new heights, man.
And I read somewhere where someone said that valuation makes it actually more valuable than the country of Italy.
Yep.
So in terms of the value, so what this story revolves around is this the one-word email. So the one-word email that we have talked about, they said that there was a guy that was doing app development. He sent this pretty long and detailed email to Tim Cook. Did you read the email?
Yes, I read parts of it, and the writer also analyzed that email. And he said it's a brilliant example of emotional intelligence expressing appreciation and respect toward Apple and its ecosystem while clearly articulating valid concerns. The fact that the ultimately critical email was so well written helps explains why it caught Tim Cook's attention in the first place. Did you agree? Did you read the email?
Yeah, I started reading the email, and it was one of those, I'll be crude about it, but it was typical of what you and I see in a lot of these business correspondence. First you jerk them off, and then you get to business, right? So
yeah, it was very flattering up front. It was a compliment sandwich.
Right. You jerked them off, told them what was wrong, and then cleaned up.
Yeah.
So so they said that once Tim Cook received this email, he just sent it to 3 of his top lieutenants. He forwarded it to them and simply just said thoughts with a question mark. And so the observation was, he could have gone either way, and maybe perhaps or he could have really dug into it, or they said he handled it very different than Jobs would have handled it. And it wasn't as threatening or as curt as what Bezos would do. They say Bezos sometimes would just send responses with a question mark.
Yeah, I've read that. That's a famous story, actually. So if a customer complains to Amazon and it reaches up to Bezos, and you could actually email Jeff Bezos his email address. I think there's a public one available. He will just forward those emails to the different departments that might, in fact, be involved in this problem with just a question mark, which I think is arrogant and rude, but that's just me.
See, I don't think that, and only
Do you think
because
it's just like easier than typing up like, "Hey, what's this problem here?"
Well, and I know you like to you and I've talked about this because you're very much a conversationalist, and you like to chat. And in my corporate, past in my corporate life, I would often get emails like that, and I didn't take any offense to them because I knew the people were busy and they probably had 300 or 400 emails. But I would get things, I would send typical, again, probably 4-5 paragraph emails about an issue, and not hear about it, and then 3 weeks later just get the reply back, update, or where are we on this, or what happened, and just very curt, I guess, perceived to be curt, but at least I didn't find it that way. So this one here I thought was well done, just by, he gets this whole missive about what's wrong with their processes, or what this one app developer sees as what's wrong. And Tim Cook takes it to heart and is like, is this valid, right? Thoughts?
Right.
What's your thoughts here? But I guess if he did send the question mark, though, is the question mark different than the than the thoughts?
I think the question mark is a direct and kind of frank, I need an answer.
Right.
I have a question, what's the answer? Whereas Cook's asking for thoughts implies that he's not really landed on a thought process about what this email means, and he's actually encouraging his senior staff to weigh in. And in fact, the article says his note did not carry the connotation. Instead, it reads like an honest concern and a genuine invitation to his most trusted advisors to share their opinions on a complex matter. That's emotionally intelligent leadership at its finest, leveraging the strength of others, well-established relationship, and simple communication to figure out answers to difficult questions.
And they said that described his leadership style as cautious, collaborative, and tactical versus the way Jobs was, right?
Well, here in the article it says that's a big difference from the way Cook's predecessor used to run things. Steve Jobs was well known for his efforts to bend reality and manipulate others. And although he led an amazing turnaround at Apple, even Jobs would be forced to admit that collaborative communication was not one of his strengths. But Jobs knew that Cook was exactly what Apple needed. And towards the end of the article, there's an interesting thing that I've read in a few other areas, but that's why before Jobs died, he reportedly advised his soon-to-be successor, quote, don't ask what I would do what's right. And Cook took the advice to heart. Fascinating.
Did you read the Steve Jobs biography?
I started to, and I put it down, and another book caught my interest, and I didn't pick it up, which kind of told me that I wasn't going to read the rest of it.
Right. No, and I'm glad, because I wondered. I did the same thing you did. I started, and then I I felt it got in the weeds a little bit, and then but I wondered could you work for somebody like him, or
I've
close
heard
with him? In other words,
man.
different than if you worked 10 levels down or something within an office or regional office. But, the Apple culture, when I have some friends, and you and I both have friends that have worked within Apple in the management side, and the culture there just seemed to be very toxic while Jobs was there.
He
Lots
had no
of rules.
problem dressing people down in front of other people. There are some interesting stories. So when they were developing the iPod, the design team knew that there was a way to present him with things. And so they went in with 4 dummies of the iPod, knowing that he was probably going to not like them. So they hid their favorite one under something on the desk. And he went through the 3, and then he's like, these are all garbage. Get back to the drawing board. I mean, literally dressing. And then they said, well, Steve, there's one that we weren't sure about, but we really would like your input on this one. This is guess what? It became the iPod. And so they knew how to manipulate the manipulator. And another one that I love is, and this is from Walter Isaacson's book as well, the Jobs biography. When the iPod was going to second generation, there was a big aquarium in a boardroom, and Jobs is like, I want this thing to be thinner. And they're like, no, it's impossible. We can't make it thinner. He walked to the aquarium and dropped the thing in, the product, and all these bubbles started coming up from the iPod. And he said, see all those bubbles? That's all that air was trapped in space you got to get rid of. I'm watching your face. Have I told you that story before?
No.
It's a classic, isn't it? Yeah. Tim Cook doesn't operate that way.
Did they show what the other prototypes look like?
There are some photographs of the older ones available, like the clay mock-ups. And the one that he actually approved was, in fact, a cardboard wood kind of thing. And he held it in his hand. He had to touch it. Another one was one of his executives had developed a way for the iPad to change the keyboard you type on when the screen goes from portrait to landscape. And everybody warned this guy, I think it's Scott Forstall, and they were like, you better not show this to Steve because he's going to rip you a new one because he doesn't like when things change just because the orientation changes. So they walk into his office, he takes the iPad, he sits quietly, flips it. He's doing his thing, not a word, and they're all starting to sweat. I mean, I love that this article was reported in Wired magazine several years ago, and they're literally starting to get damp palms, and they're like, we're really going to get screwed. And he hands the iPad back. He goes, looks good to me, good to go. So that's what I would call I call that a mercurial leader, someone who's kind of unpredictable, but a genius, but doesn't care about empathy or compliment sandwiches or any of that stuff, right?
It's funny when things like that happen, don't you think?
Yeah.
I had just as a short aside, I was presenting something to L.L. Bean and was told no fewer than 15 to 20 times, do not mention Paul Hogan. Crocodile Dundee, Mr. Gorman won't understand. It's part of pop culture he doesn't get. He's just not going to get it. Okay, so we go in to present this whole thing with not using anything with Crocodile Dundee or Paul Hogan for the Subaru work. He sits down. Hi, thanks for coming in. I introduce myself. Before we even get into the presentation, he goes, are we going to get to use Paul Hogan in the commercials? And I looked at all the L.L. Bean staff, of which you know some. I looked at all the staff, and they were mortified and terrified. And I said, if we think there's a fit, certainly. And then we kept going. But it was, I said, you're not going to see that work today because we just wanted to introduce ourselves. But
that was a good rescue, Tim. Very good rescue there. But again, that does feed into what we're talking about, everyone. And that's this notion of emotional intelligence, how to connect people, how to get the best out of them. And we'll conclude with this interesting thing that we said earlier about how Steve Jobs basically told Tim Cook, don't ask what I would do what's right. Cook took the advice to heart. And then this quote from Tim Cook, I knew what I needed to do was not to mimic him, a.k.a. Steve Jobs. I would fail miserably at that, and I think this is largely the case for many people who take a baton from someone larger than life. And I love this last one. You have to chart your own course. You have to be the best version of yourself. And that must have been super hard to step into that leadership role on a company that people literally tied to a man, Steve Jobs.
Yep.
And then to start doing product development, software development, services development, and always be criticized with the same thing. Would Steve Jobs do that, or would Steve do that? Eventually that stopped, but there you go.
Yeah, no, that was a great story. I enjoyed that for our shop talk today. I thought that was a good pick, Mr. Nash.
Thank you. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up for the week, right, Tim?
Yes.
Yes. I still think your hair looks fine, but I don't see. Maybe you have a man bun going on. Is that?
No, it's just long.
No, I don't know. It's going to get blurred out. It's getting
Yeah, you're not going to be able to see it.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining us today and being a part of the show. Check out Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. It's 3 short stories. Tim mentioned it earlier, usually about 20 minutes. And again, everything about us can be found at focusgroupradio.com, including our partners and sponsors, and one that we've been talking about earlier would be Deep Discount. Go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the shark logo, and start your shopping experience. We covered a bunch of films from one of their sales that was the big 60s and 70s movie renaissance. I picked a strange film I'd never heard of before called Greaser's Palace. Robert Downey Sr. directing. Need I say more? Let's see, Tim, you picked the Out-of-Towners, right?
Exactly.
And the release this week is Gordon Lightfoot, If You Could Read My Mind, a biopic. Looks good. So thank you, Deep Discount. Everybody, don't text and drive. Arrive alive. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the new one.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.